Stoner's comments just changed the way many fans are looking at Ducati's future. He believes Pedro Acosta has everything it takes to become Ducati's next superstar, but he also believes there's one dangerous habit that could stop him from becoming world champion. And perhaps even more surprising, Casey Stoner says he actually feels sorry for Pecco Bagnaia after the way Ducati handled the situation. Before we get into all the details, welcome back to GP Overtake. If you enjoy MotoGP stories, rider market updates, and behind-the-scenes analysis you won't hear anywhere else, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. For years, Casey Stoner has rarely spoken at length about the MotoGP rider market. But whenever the Australian legend does speak, people listen. After all, this is the man who delivered Ducati its first Premier-class World Championship back in 2007, long before the Desmosedici became the dominant machine it is today. So when Stoner shared his thoughts about Ducati's 2027 factory lineup, his words immediately caught the attention of the MotoGP paddock. And according to him, Ducati has made the logical choice. Marc Marquez and Pedro Acosta. Experience and youth. Proven success and unlimited potential. In Stoner's eyes, it's difficult to argue against that combination. Speaking about Marc Marquez, Stoner had nothing but admiration. He described the 8-time world champion as one of the most dependable riders MotoGP has ever seen. No matter what injury Marquez suffers, no matter how many critics write him off, he somehow finds a way to come back stronger. Time and time again, Marquez has shown an incredible ability to adapt, overcome pain, and still fight for victories. That consistency is exactly why Ducati chose to build its future around him. But when the conversation shifted to Pedro Acosta, Stoner's tone became much more interesting. Because while he fully believes Acosta possesses extraordinary talent, he also sees one weakness that could cost him championships. Stoner believes Acosta sometimes races with too much emotion. Instead of thinking about the bigger picture, Acosta occasionally becomes obsessed with beating specific rivals. There are moments where he simply refuses to let certain riders stay ahead of him, even if forcing the issue increases the risk of crashing or throwing away valuable championship points. For a young rider, that's understandable. The hunger is enormous. The confidence is sky high. But championship-winning riders know something equally important. Sometimes, second place is good enough. Sometimes, finishing fourth is far better than ending up in the gravel. That patience separates race winners from world champions. Stoner explained that if Acosta can learn when to attack and when to accept the result, his natural ability will become even more dangerous. And that's exactly why Ducati is such an exciting next step. Right now, it's difficult to know Acosta's true level because the KTM has been one of the biggest question marks on the MotoGP grid. Some weekends it looks capable of fighting for podiums. Other weekends it struggles just to stay inside the top 10. The bike's inconsistency has made it almost impossible to judge how much of the performance comes from the motorcycle and how much comes from Acosta himself. Once Acosta climbs onto a Ducati, there will be nowhere to hide. If he's as good as many believe, everyone will see it immediately. And if he combines that talent with greater maturity, Stoner believes he could become one of the biggest threats in MotoGP. Interestingly, Stoner's comments line up with what many former riders have said over the past 2 seasons. MotoGP legends often point out that raw speed is rarely enough to win championships. The riders who dominate over an entire season aren't always the fastest every Sunday. They're the ones who know how to maximize points on difficult weekends. Valentino Rossi mastered that skill. Jorge Lorenzo mastered it. Marc Marquez perfected it during his Honda dominance. Even Pecco Bagnaia built his recent titles by knowing when to limit the damage instead of taking unnecessary risks. That's exactly the lesson many believe Acosta still needs to learn. And at Ducati, he'll have the perfect environment to develop that final piece of the puzzle. But perhaps the biggest surprise from Stoner wasn't what he said about Acosta. It was what he said about Pecco Bagnaia. Despite Bagnaia leaving Ducati for Aprilia, Stoner believes the Italian has been treated unfairly. In fact, he admitted he feels genuinely sorry for him. Many fans spent the last year criticizing Bagnaia. Some claimed he had simply lost confidence. Others argued he was making excuses whenever he complained about the bike. But Stoner wasn't convinced. Watching from the outside, he noticed something different. According to him, the Ducati Bagnaia was riding simply wasn't behaving the way it should. As someone who understands exactly how a Ducati is supposed to react, Stoner felt there were clear signs that the motorcycle wasn't identical to what people assumed. Bagnaia's smooth riding style depends on stability. He's not the kind of rider who constantly wrestles the bike into submission. Instead, he builds speed through precision, confidence, and consistency. When the bike starts behaving unpredictably, it hurts riders like Bagnaia far more than aggressive riders who naturally adapt through instinct. That's why Stoner believes many people judged Bagnaia too harshly. And when you consider everything Bagnaia has achieved for Ducati, Stoner believes the situation becomes even harder to accept. After all, Bagnaia delivered Ducati's first Riders' Championship since Stoner himself won in 2007. He then backed it up with another world title. He also remained a championship contender almost every season that followed. Yet despite all those achievements, Ducati ultimately decided to build its future around Marc Marquez and Pedro Acosta. For Stoner, Bagnaia simply drew the short straw. Still, the Australian legend doesn't believe this is the end of Bagnaia's story. Quite the opposite. He actually sees Aprilia as a chance for a fresh start. A new motorcycle, a new group of engineers, a new atmosphere, and perhaps most importantly, a new source of motivation. Sometimes, even the most successful riders need a different environment to rediscover the confidence that made them champions. If Aprilia can provide Bagnaia with a bike that suits his natural style, MotoGP could suddenly have another genuine title contender. And that would only make the championship even more exciting. Looking ahead to 2027, the storylines are already incredible. Marc Marquez leading Ducati's factory effort. Pedro Acosta trying to prove he's the next superstar. Pecco Bagnaia beginning a brand new chapter with Aprilia. Jorge Martin searching for consistency. Marco Bezzecchi continuing his development. And manufacturers like KTM, Honda, and Yamaha all trying to close the gap. The next era of MotoGP could be one of the most competitive we've seen in years. One thing is certain. When someone with Casey Stoner's experience predicts Pedro Acosta will become a major threat, the entire paddock pays attention. Now the only question left is whether Acosta can combine his breathtaking speed with the patience needed to become a world champion. Because if he does, the rest of the MotoGP grid may have a very serious problem. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to GP Overtake, and tell us in the comments. Do you agree with Casey Stoner? Will Pedro Acosta become MotoGP's next Ducati champion? Or do you think Marc Marquez will remain the undisputed leader of the factory team for years to come? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.